Alright friends, so today we are shooting on the Sigma FP and we're going to continue to try out this teal and orange color profile for a little while. We're going to play around with it, and yes, obviously we're going to do a whole lot more than just standard talking head work with it. But this is the majority of what we shoot. Having 5 YouTube channels, we do so much talking head work. Now, I made a video yesterday that I released about teal and orange and about how I was in a conversation with a good friend of mine who shoots on Sigma FP, and he shoots professionally with Sigma FPs. And he's actually the guy that got me into Sigma FPs in the first place. And he didn't really have to talk me into it, but the guy that introduced me to the FP in the first place. So for him to say that he shoots 95% of his work in teal and orange, that says a lot to me. And his work is absolutely top-notch. He's a professional filmmaker. He does mostly documentary, interview style, professional work. It's not, YouTube crap, let's say, I guess. And I would even go ahead and consider, what I make here more YouTube crap. It's just stuff that gets compressed and really no one knows what it's being shot in. Half the time it could be shot in HD and no one would know. And frankly, most of the time, no one even cares. I see more and more videos with absolutely horrific audio, and yet it's got millions of views. No one cares. We see so many videos shot on phones. No one seems to care. So why are content creators, why are we as YouTubers, content creators, putting so much effort into something that no one out there watching really even notices? Well, hopefully it's for us. It's for our creative nature. It's for our own artistry. And so I create outside of YouTube, and for me, I have a very, very specific way of shooting, hence why I do have my Sigma FP set up the way I do for run and gun style work, which you can catch in that video there, which we'll link in the description. And that is very specific to my needs. And I realize completely that my needs are very unique, probably completely unique, but regardless, I do put a lot of effort and care into the product that I'm putting out there as a content creator. Now, I shot Canon cinema cameras for years. I started with the Canon C100 Mark II. I used that until the C200 came out, switched over to the C200, and we used the Canon C200s for years, very, very happily, until we decided to start this channel here, The Growing Pro, and base this channel off of budgetary options that we can provide to you where you can get your career started without having to wait and save up $5,000 for your first camera, or even $3,000 for your first camera, $5,000 for your first kit, whatever. We want to give you an option like the GH5. I mean, we quite literally started this channel on the GH5 specifically to give you as the viewer, as the budding artist, an option that will give you cinema quality work at a very low budget. And I just saw a very well rigged out or very well kitted out GH5 on eBay for $629. I believe it came with body, like 4 batteries, a charger, a cage, a booster. I believe it was not the Metabones, so I believe it was the Viltrox adapter booster. And it came with a couple more things too. It came with a Manfrotto base plate. It may have even, I believe, I just look at so many cameras. I believe it also came with a battery grip. Hence why it had so many batteries. But for all of that, for $629 to get an actual career started. And when you go through the GH5 menus and you see all of the recording codecs that it has to offer, when you could be shooting cinema 4K 10-bit, 24 frames a second, all eye, I mean, the options on this camera are more than enough to start a career. Not make YouTube videos, start a film career. And this is a filmmaker's camera. It offers filmmaking tools. And alongside good audio, dare I say great audio, you can provide your viewers with a phenomenal product, with a filmic-worthy cinematic product. That is our goal at The Growing Pro, to give you options like that. Now, what we're going to do soon is we're actually going to take one of our last C200s left, which we only have one left. We actually had up to three. We had three C100 Mark IIIs, then immediately replaced that with two C200s because we only needed to go down to two cameras at a time. Then we bought a third C200 to have a third angle, and then kind of got out of that work. And although we still do podcast work for one of our other channels, we really only need two angles. I don't like that whole center and individual angles look. That's not what I like. It's not what we go for. We like a more interactive, single-based, one camera shows both people or even up to four people in a podcast, and then the second camera still shows everyone involved in that podcast from a different angle that kind of focuses more on the microphones themselves rather than every single individual. Yes, we can throw a camera on every single individual, but I'm not into that. That does nothing for me. I watch these videos where every cut goes to whoever's talking. It's just another angle showing a bus shot of someone talking, and to me, that's overdone and it's boring. That's my personal opinion. You can have whatever opinion you want, but I prefer to have two camera angles that show everyone involved, but from very different angles. That to me is a little more interesting because when one person is speaking, there's almost always responsive reaction. I want that responsive reaction captured on camera. I don't want that cut out because the person talking is still talking. We are now completely missing out on person number three's responsive reaction. So that to me is very integral in the entire project. That is a part of the project. So that's why two cameras is enough for me, for the projects that we do, for the type of work that we do. Even if it's a podcast, having two cameras that show integral angles, that show everyone's response, even if one person is talking, that to me is interest. So there you go. There you have it. There's some thoughts for today, friends. There are currently some very killer deals on GH5s on eBay right now. if you are looking to upgrade your camera. I think there's nothing wrong with getting started with a G7, G85, Micro Four Thirds. And if you aren't familiar with me by now and the work I do, I am a huge Micro Four Thirds fan. I started my film journey on a GH4, G7, G85, GX850, GX85. They all worked in one way or another together to do what we needed to do. But when I moved over to a GH5, I too quickly got rid of it, jumped ship, went over to full frame, got a Canon EOS R, Sony A7 III, and pretty much ended my Micro Four Thirds journey, with the exception of this, the Lumix GX850, which basically just serves as a fun family camera. More or less, it will end up becoming my kids' vlogging camera so that they can start their YouTube channels, because 3 of my kids want to start YouTube channels. This is the perfect camera for them to get started. It's 4K, provides a great image. I have a tiny little 12 to 32 pancake lens on here. The built-in mics are not horrible. They're not great, but they're not horrible. And if need be, I have a very basic field recorder which the kids can strap on, get started with separate audio. A huge part of my background is in the music industry. So I've spent over 20 years as a professional sound engineer and producer, so audio is not a problem for us. I've got so many options, it's ridiculous. And let me remind you, I'm a single father of 6, 5 under the age of 18. So you give one kid one thing, then you got to give the rest whatever it is that they want, if they want that same type of thing. So 3 of my kids want to start vlogging. My 7-year-old can start vlogging with this, or my 9-year-old, while the other one starts vlogging with this, the Canon PowerShot V10. And the Canon PowerShot V10 may offer slightly better audio because it has an 1/8" TRS jack, but I don't like the image on this Canon V10 anywhere near as much as I like the image of the GX850. So with 2 vlogging cameras, here you have audio, better audio, and then better picture, better image quality here. And then, frankly, my older son, my son who is 12, he's ready to start. He's responsible enough to start vlogging on either my GH5 or the G85 that I picked up for one of my older sons. And to be honest, the G85 is the perfect starter vlogging camera. And as I've told you guys before and shown you in many other videos, even on Micro Four Thirds, getting started vlogging is very simple. You can get a great image vlogging with the SLR Magic 12mm. I think they even have a 10mm, and that's a great angle. That's a great angle, and it's manual focus, so it forces my kids to learn to manually focus themselves. And then let's say my 12-year-old starts vlogging, and then he's ready. He's like, Dad, I want to shoot a film. I want to shoot a movie. I want to make something. Well, then he takes an SLR Magic T095 lens like this 35mm Cine 2 or my 25mm, and he's ready to make a film. And T095 gives you a beautiful, blurry, bokeh-filled background, but a gorgeous and very cinematic image quality. So there's options. And plenty of options, plenty of affordable options. You can get started on G7. I started vlogging with a G7 on a Zhiyun Crane M2 or V2, M2 or V2, but the Zhiyun Crane gimbal. And the G7 on that gimbal was a great setup. But then vlogging with the G85 handheld, back when I did not have as much nerve damage down my right side, that was a very good option for me. But the image stabilization of a GH5 is phenomenal. Then you get into that of a GH6. The image stabilization on a GH6, even better. The cinematic qualities, the cinematic tools on a GH6, even better. So moving your way up through the Micro Four Thirds ecosystem can be very smooth, very effortless. And you can go from simple vlogging setup to cinematic quality video. So Micro Four Thirds isn't full frame, and I understand the desire for full frame. The majority of my photography is shot in full frame for a reason. And then every shoot, for a few shots, I pull out my Fujifilm X-H1 or X-T1 with the Viltrox Pro 1.2 lenses, and I'm still getting my fantastically blurry background. But I find that's for a reason. That's specific. That's to focus on the image. That's to focus on the main focal point of that image. Whether it's the model's face, the model's eyes, what the model is doing, the model's pose, part of the model's body, there's a reason for that. So essentially, I guess the whole point is Micro Four Thirds can take you from start to finish. And that gets overlooked all the time. All right, friends, there's another video for you at The Growing Pro. I hope that's given you something to think about. Stay tuned. We've got some very exciting videos coming up because we've got some exciting holiday giveaways that we're going to be doing. So keep watching, like, share, subscribe. I hope that something we've shared with you has given you some value in your life for your career to help you circumvent this whole process, this learning process, this process of losing lots of money to go through different things so that you can get to a point where you're making money with your craft faster. All right, see you in the next video.